A thought struck me recently that since I have become a father, I have a lot of series that I need to catch up on. But luckily, most of it is out, so I could just binge it whenever I have time. But then that got me thinking, is that really the best way to consume it? Hello everyone, my name is Daidarius, and welcome to today's topic where I will try to discuss the best way to actually read manga. Which, it should be obvious, you just open it up and read it, unless you are one of those crazy people who can just put your hand on the volume and then just absorb the content. But if you just push that aside, what is the best way to read a manga series? Is it by binging it or doing it by pace? One volume at a time at a specific interval. Well, let's try to find out. The first thing I would try to argue for is, well, the slow release. The one that most of us who has caught up with a currently ongoing series is actually experiencing it. One chapter at a time, or in a more tangible way, one volume at a time, because most of us end up buying the volumes. But often we read a volume of a given series and then we wait until the next one drops, which usually for a weekly series is one volume each 3 months. So you read a volume, you wait 3 months, you read another volume, or you read a chapter, you wait a week, you read another chapter. What's the benefit of it? Well, two things really. First of all, there's the discourse. Because there is a amount of time between each releases, you have a chance to talk about it with peers, friends, family, whomever who share the same hobby as you. And then you can theorize about where the story is gonna go, reflect on what just happened, and analyze every minute detail. It is a fun experience to actually try and read something and then share it with your friends. Try to discuss certain angles you haven't thought about, character motivations, character changes, new character comes in, so on and so forth. It is some of the things that I appreciate most about reading series weekly. But it is also a slow process to consume it. Now, of course, when something is currently releasing, you do not have any other choice. But if you are going to read One Piece, for example, for the first time ever, you're gonna do it by reading one chapter weekly. You will not be caught up on what is currently released until 27 or 28 years down the line. That's insanely long. That's not feasible. So of course you will have to read more than just one chapter a week. But what's the next thing? Is that one volume a week? Because by that pace, you will still have to read continuously every week for over 2 years to catch up on the latest volume currently released in English as of this recording. Sure, it's also make sure that you can actually discuss these awesome volumes with people who are also reading it at the same pace, but such a long series and only reading one volume each week is probably too slow to experiencing it. And then the alternative then becomes read a volume a day, and then it will only take you more than 3 months to read the whole series, which is a lot shorter than just, 2 years, but still 3 months to just catch up because you're only reading one volume each day. But then again, where do you go from there? Do you read 2 volumes each day? 3, 4, as many as you can, and then you just power through the series? You gotta put a pin in that for later. But one of the things that I have noticed is that when I pace myself when reading a series, let it marinate with me. Let me reflect on it, talk with it with my friends. I actually remember a lot more smaller details about the series than when I don't. So for an example, let me just go with this. I have been reading One Piece since 2006, which is 19 years of reading One Piece. I have not been reading One Piece weekly since 2006. That's crazy. That's since 2007. But nevertheless, I have been reading One Piece in a freaking long time. And even then, I remember most of the things that have happened in that series because I was forced to be paced. I read a volume when it dropped, and then I had to wait. And then once I got tired of waiting for the latest volume, I caught up with the chapters, which was at that point in Thriller Bark, and then I would have to wait weekly, and then I would have to discuss with whatever group I was in weekly. And then since we were discussing the chapters, since I was marinating in on it, then most of the story actually stuck with me, because whenever I reread One Piece, I rarely am surprised about the things that are happening, because we have often tried this, revisiting something we haven't read for years or watching something we haven't watched for years, and then there's a whole ass section you just couldn't remember what's in there. You're just sitting there baffled like, was that in there from the get-go? I don't remember that. I have no memory correction of that. But when you actually experience or consume a product more slowly, then often you actually remember more of it because you actually had a chance to sit with it. And that is one of the beauty of pacing yourself. But it's also very, very, very slow. And there is a chance that when you then continue with whatever you're reading, you have a harder time remembering what just happened. Which brings me on to the binging aspect. Because if you've noticed, then often when I do my manga hauls on this channel, then if it is a complete series, I will collect everything most of the time before I start reading it. One example is Trigon. I have yet to read Trigon, but luckily the final volume will drop in July, at least when I'm gonna buy it. The same goes with JoJo Part 6. Part 4, 5 and now 6, I all started reading them when I had all 9 volumes. Because then I could binge read it. I could experience the whole story from beginning to end in one go. But I mean, I did not read it in a single day. More often than not, I would read one volume a day and then over a period of 9 days, but usually a bit quicker because we have the weekends, I would experience the entire story. And in that aspect, I actually think it was better for me to experience the stories like that because I remember more of it, which kind of goes against the argument I just had. But the key difference here is it is shorter series. For example, Solanin is a single volume. It is so short, it is so short that it has been turned into a movie because that's the length of it. And of course, in that case, you should definitely binge it. Just read the whole thing in one go because that is one of the stories I believe benefits from it. Whereas Goodnight Pun Pun, no, don't do that to yourself, please. Same go with Berserk. That is also one of the stories where I really think you shouldn't binge it. On the other hand, something like Colorless, which is 7 volumes, I definitely think you should, because it's such a unique short experience that is, in my opinion, best experienced in one burst. The good thing is that once you binge something, while you're doing it, everything is fresh in your memory, as long as it's short. And I think that is the crust of it. More often than not, we are so determined to catch up on everyone else. Just look at manga hauls. There is so many people out there that just speedruns, accumulating a collection. They want to catch up on the big numbers like 500 volumes, 1,000 volumes, 2,000 volumes, because all the big YouTubers are big YouTubers, manga tubers that see on YouTube, well, their collection is in those numbers and they want to catch up because of FOMO. Where in reality, it's not really a race, it's a marathon. You gotta pace yourself. But you don't have to use the same pace for everything. And in binging, well, I believe when it is a shorter series, it's more beneficial to binge it. But when it's a longer series, for example, there is a lot of things in, say, Blade of the Immortal, which I binged, that I have a hard time remembering. Or in Fire Force, which is 34 volumes. Even Pokemon Adventure, it's funny, I'm pointing at volumes, I'm pointing at rows, you cannot even see it, just believe me, I'm pointing at my Pokemon Adventures volumes down here, but I binge read over 40 volumes in I think in 2 weeks or something, which for me is a damn fast pace because I don't really have the time on my hands to binge that many. But I binge read that over a short period of time, and I gotta be honest, just thinking back on each series, Pokemon, Gold and Silver, Red and Blue, Fire Red, Leaf Green, it's very limited of the things that happen in there that I can remember. I can remember certain moments, but overall there's a lot of chunks of it that I just can't recollect. Now, the good thing about that is that once I actually want to reread the series, I'm gonna get a big surprise because I can't remember shit about it. But on the other hand, it's not really fair for me to consume a whole series and remember fuck all when I know that the author and the artist put their heart and soul into delivering the best series they could provide for that setting. And Pokemon Adventures is not a bad series, it is a great series. More often than not, if a movie, or in this case if a manga story, is just kinda below mid, so forgettable, then sure, you will not remember it because it didn't leave any impact on you. But there's also other series that did leave an impact, but because I binged it, I have a harder time remembering it. So what is the best way? Is it just to make sure that you binge shorter series and then pace the longer ones? Or is there something else we can maybe do instead that is the most optimal option? And here's the boring answer. There really isn't, because it depends on you. What works for you? Because you might be one of those persons that can just binge read everything and you have a photographic memory and you can just visualize every single page of that manga in your head easily. Well, in that case, just binge read. You can just consume whatever you want. Then there are other people who need time to think about, really marinate on whatever they've just read for it to leave an impact before they move on to the next volume. And they can still recollect the story beats that happen up until that point so they get the most out of the next volume I'm gonna read. Me, on the other hand, I just need to pace myself, but not too much. It's not like I have to make sure I only read one volume each day, because that's not how it's gonna work. But also not like reading 5, 6, 7, whatever you have volumes each day, because that's also not gonna work. It is fun, but then when I get back to it the next day, I often have trouble remembering what happened in the story the day before. So I would say that you need to binge read, but pace it. Which, how are you gonna do that? Well, for me, for example, I need to binge read a series, so when it is the deluxe edition, more often than not, I will try to read maybe half the volume, sometimes even the full volume on a day, but still while reading it, just slow down a bit and try to soak in the most important moments. For Berserk, spoiler alert, but in one of the last volumes, I think it's volume 14, is volume 14, there's this page turn. Without spoiling it, if you are reading it for the first time, where you see an image of Casca. Pretty sure you know the one if you have read it. It is one single page with one single panel on it. I sat on that one page for like, I believe, 5 minutes, soaking it in, because it warranted that time and I needed that time to really reflect on the journey that brought me to that page. Where in the action scenes, sometimes I'm just gonna blast through it because the action scene is a breakneck speed. But other times it has a big hit, a big panel that I'm just gonna sit and look at because I need to. So that's what I mean about I'm gonna binge it, but with the pace. Sometimes you need to slow down, but other times it's fine to speed up. But that is just my take on it. What is your take on it? What is the best, most optimal way to actually consume manga? Is it binging? Is it pacing? Is it somewhere in between? Or is it something completely different? What I know is I'm gonna try to maybe not want to binge everything and just wait until I've accumulated a full series before I start reading it, and then once I actually start reading it, just blasting through it. Maybe I should also try to give the pacing where I just read a volume and then I wait until the next one drops, because there's really something special about that. Even if when a volume drops, 3 months have passed and it's a bit more difficult to remember it. But then maybe I should just try and reread the former volume. Except I can't remember what happened before then, so then I have to read the former volume. But might as well just read the whole series or read a synopsis, who knows. But yeah, I'm looking very much forward to hear what you have to say about the perfect pace for reading a manga series. Whatever it is, come over me your thoughts, and always until I see you next video, just remember to stay awesome. See ya!